my family also isn't eating boxed mac and cheese every night. We do definitely eat it some nights. I've spent a lot of time in the course of my later 20s and 30s learning how to cook, and I've got 4 tips for how I have become a better cook during that time. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s entering into grad school that I actually buckled down and learned how to cook and taught myself how to make good food on a cheap budget. Because as I was entering grad school, we got a stipend for being part of the science community, but we didn't get a lot of money, and I had to figure it out. I had to figure out how to eat and to eat well and live. For the majority of my early 20s, I was in restaurants, either bartending, working at a bakery, or serving somewhere. And so I just didn't really eat out, or I didn't really cook at home. I ate out all the time because that's just the culture. And also you're exhausted and you don't want to go home and cook after you've been around food all day. So when I entered into grad school, that's really when I learned how to cook. And here are my 4 ways that I feel like I have developed into a better cook. So the first way is that I consume a lot of food content, and I really have since I was little. Like I said, I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I've always just found a lot of comfort in food. I grew up in a family that had uncles that owned restaurants and all of that stuff. So I spent a lot of my childhood years actually watching the Food Network. And that trend kind of just stayed until I was a teen and into my adult years. And honestly, if we could afford it, we would watch the Food Network now, but cable costs money that we don't have. So I don't watch it anymore. But I've spent a lot of time consuming content. Now that I don't watch the Food Network all the time, I do spend a lot of time watching Instagram Reels, YouTube videos, or reading blog posts all centered around food. In fact, most of my pleasure content is food related. A couple of the places that I love to look for any inspiration are the New York Times Cooking and the kitchen blog, The Kitchen Without an E. So good, such great sites. And just the more content you consume in anything that you do, the more you're just gonna pick up tips and tricks along the way. These tips and tricks typically pop back up for me when I'm in the middle of troubleshooting something that I'm cooking or baking. And that always just helps me remember that, hey, I'm not just consuming that content mindlessly. It's actually doing something really good for myself. The second thing I always do is that whenever we go out to eat, I always get something that I don't make at home or something that's new to me. So this can be kind of iffy because if you don't really like it, well, you've just wasted your hard-earned money on it. But you know what? You haven't wasted your hard-earned money on all the ingredients it costs to make it. One of the examples of this is falafels for me. I didn't know how much I loved falafels, and they're pretty pricey to keep the ingredients on hand or to stock up on all of those ingredients so that you can make them all the time. Of course, after you've stocked up on all of those ingredients, way cheaper to eat falafels at home than to eat them out. But I would have never known that I liked falafels and could figure out how to cook them if I had not started eating them at restaurants out when we were out, because I didn't make them at home. So I use our limited restaurant time and restaurant money to try new things that I can therefore invest in ingredients and start making at home if I really like them. The third thing that I do is I challenge myself for every meal plan to make a new recipe. Now, I do this every 2 weeks, so 1 new meal every 2 weeks. But if you're planning once a week at a time, or however it really works for your schedule, you should challenge yourself to plan a new meal to you. Find a recipe that you like, maybe find an ingredient at the grocery store that's on sale, like a cut of pork that maybe you wouldn't normally eat. Challenge yourself how to make that in a way that you're really gonna love it. It's gonna grow you as a cook. It's gonna help you put all of that knowledge you earn from content to use. And you're really gonna get a lot of self-confidence out of knowing how to cook things that you didn't know how to do before. And lastly, along the same lines then, I always keep a backup of any type of meal in my freezer, meaning that if I get really discouraged or if I burn something the first time I make it, or if it just doesn't work out, there's always something that I can go to and make really quickly in my freezer to make up for the fact that I have just messed up whatever we were supposed to eat for dinner. The reason why this is so important is because at the end of the day, if you're learning how to sew or learning how to golf or whatever, it's okay if you mess up, you can just move on and try again the next day. Well, when it comes to food, if you've planned that food for dinner and then you mess it up, what the heck are you gonna eat for dinner? It's gonna take you an hour to go get takeout, and it's just gonna be discouraging and you're not gonna wanna try. So if you always have something to make in your freezer that can make up for any mess ups you make, then you're gonna be much more likely to have the confidence to try and be willing to fail because you know that you're not gonna starve and you're not gonna starve your family. So no matter where you're at on your cooking journey, I hope this video and these tips were a little bit helpful. Remember, consume food content, watch it, put it as a priority on your mindless scrolling to consume food content. Always have something as a backup in your freezer. Try new things when you go to restaurants and then see if you can replicate them at home if you really like them. And what was the last one? Oh, and always challenge yourself to try to make something new at least once a month, if not once every week or every 2 weeks. I hope this video was encouraging to you. Know that it took me years and years to feel like I could feed my family well and really enjoy my food that I cook too. And some days it still fails, and that's okay because I'm still learning and it'll be a lifelong learning lesson. I'll probably never have a Michelin star, but I may learn how to sous vide something one day. All right, until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.